One of the most profound misunderstandings that empaths carry throughout their lives is the belief that their role is to absorb the pain of the world. From an early age, many highly sensitive people become emotional sponges. They walk into a room and immediately sense tension. They notice what remains unspoken. They feel the sadness behind a smile, the anxiety behind confidence, the loneliness hidden beneath achievement. Over time, this ability can begin to feel less like a gift and more like a responsibility. They unconsciously conclude that if they can feel another person's pain, then somehow they are responsible for carrying it. But this is where many empaths become trapped. There is an important distinction between understanding suffering and becoming consumed by it. The first creates wisdom, the second creates exhaustion, yet many empaths spend years confusing these two experiences. They believe that the depth of their compassion is measured by how much pain they can tolerate. They believe that love means taking on the emotional burdens of everyone around them. And while this often comes from a noble place, it ultimately leads them away from their true purpose. The purpose of empathy is not emotional self-sacrifice. The purpose of empathy is transformation. Think about this for a moment. A doctor does not heal a patient by becoming sick. A guide does not lead others through darkness by losing their own way. In the same way, an empath is not called to drown in another person's emotional experience. They are called to remain conscious enough to help create meaning from it. This changes everything. When you stop viewing sensitivity as a duty to suffer and start viewing it as a capacity to understand, a different relationship with pain begins to emerge. Pain is no longer something you absorb indefinitely. It becomes information, it becomes insight, it becomes a doorway into deeper awareness. Psychologically, this is a critical shift. People who constantly absorb the emotions of others often lose contact with their own inner reality. They become experts at reading everyone else while becoming strangers to themselves. Their identity becomes organized around helping, fixing, rescuing, or protecting. But eventually they discover a difficult truth. Carrying another person's pain does not heal them. In fact, it can sometimes prevent genuine healing, because it keeps both people trapped in the same emotional cycle. Real healing occurs when someone feels seen, understood, and empowered, not when someone else carries their burden for them. This is why the mature empath learns a different way of relating to suffering. Instead of asking, "How much of this pain can I carry?" they begin asking, "How can I help transform this pain into understanding?" That question shifts them from martyrdom to purpose. And transformation is one of the most extraordinary human capacities. Every meaningful aspect of growth emerges from it. Grief can become wisdom. Rejection can become self-respect. Failure can become resilience. Fear can become courage. The empath's gift is not simply sensing these emotional experiences. Their gift is recognizing what those experiences are trying to teach. Philosophically, this reflects something fundamental about the human condition. We do not grow despite our struggles. We grow through the meaning we create from them. Every challenge contains the possibility of greater awareness. Every wound contains the potential for deeper understanding. Empaths often perceive this before others do. They can sense the hidden story beneath the visible struggle. They can see possibilities where others see only pain. But to fulfill this role, they must first stop identifying themselves as emotional containers. They are not here to endlessly collect suffering. They are here to illuminate what suffering can become, and perhaps that is the deeper mission. Not to absorb darkness, but to help transform it. Not to carry every burden, but to reveal the wisdom hidden within it. Because the moment an empath stops asking how much pain they can hold and starts asking what healing they can create, they step into the purpose they were meant to live. Your sensitivity was never mean if the first part of the empath's journey is learning that they are not meant to absorb the world's pain. Then the second part is learning something equally challenging. Compassion without boundaries is not compassion. It is self-erasure. This lesson is often one of the hardest for empaths to accept because many have spent a lifetime receiving praise for their ability to give. They are the ones who listen when no one else does. They are the ones who stay longer, forgive more quickly, understand more deeply, and make room for the emotions of everyone around them. Their sensitivity allows them to perceive needs that others overlook. And because they care so deeply, they often feel compelled to respond. But over time, a subtle danger emerges. The ability to understand another person's feelings can slowly become an obligation to manage them. What begins as empathy can evolve into emotional responsibility. And before they realize it, many empaths are no longer simply caring for others. They are organizing their lives around the emotional comfort of everyone except themselves. This is where exhaustion enters, not because they care too much, but because they have forgotten that caring and carrying are not the same thing. Psychologically, boundaries are often misunderstood. Many people hear the word and imagine distance, rejection, or coldness. But healthy boundaries are not walls, they are definitions. They define where one person ends and another begins. They allow us to remain connected without becoming consumed. For empaths, this distinction is essential. When you can feel the emotions of others so intensely, it becomes easy to confuse their experience with your own. Someone else's anxiety becomes your anxiety. Someone else's disappointment becomes your disappointment. Someone else's crisis becomes your crisis. The emotional lines become blurred, and eventually you begin living in reaction to the inner world of everyone around you. The paradox is that the more this happens, the less effective your empathy becomes. Because true empathy requires presence, not absorption. You cannot offer clarity when you are overwhelmed. You cannot offer stability when you are emotionally depleted. You cannot guide others toward healing when you have abandoned your own emotional center. This is why mature empathy demands boundaries. And maturity, in this context, does not mean becoming less compassionate. It means becoming more discerning about where your responsibility begins and ends. Many empaths struggle with guilt when they first begin establishing boundaries. They worry they are becoming selfish. They fear disappointing people. They fear being misunderstood. Yet what they are really confronting is a belief that their worth depends on their availability. That belief runs deep. For many sensitive individuals, being needed became intertwined with being valued. Being helpful became intertwined with being loved. As a result, saying no can feel emotionally threatening because it challenges an identity built around service and accommodation. But growth requires questioning these patterns. A healthy relationship is not one where one person constantly gives and the other constantly receives. A healthy relationship is one where both individuals remain responsible for their own emotional lives. Empathy can support another person's journey, but it cannot live that journey for them. Philosophically, boundaries are an expression of self-respect. They acknowledge a simple truth. Your life is not less valuable than the lives you seek to help. Your energy is not an infinite resource. Your emotional well-being is not a luxury, it is a necessity. In fact, boundaries are what make sustainable compassion possible. Without them, empathy eventually turns into resentment. The very people you once wanted to support become associated with exhaustion. The very relationships you hoped to nurture become sources of emotional depletion. Not because love disappeared, but because love was asked to operate without limits. Every meaningful force in nature has a structure that contains it. Rivers need banks, fire needs a hearth. Even light is focused through a lens. Human compassion is no different. Without structure, it disperses. With structure, it becomes powerful. The empath who learns this no longer feels compelled to rescue everyone. They no longer believe every problem is theirs to solve. They begin listening without absorbing, caring without carrying, and loving without losing themselves. And something remarkable happens. Their presence becomes calmer, their guidance becomes clearer, their relationships become healthier. Because they are no longer giving from obligation, they are giving from choice. That is the difference between emotional survival and emotional mastery. The strongest empath is not the one who sacrifices themselves for everyone else. The strongest empath is the one who protects their own inner foundation, so that their compassion remains a source of strength rather than a source of depletion. Once an empath learns not to absorb the world's pain and discovers how to protect their energy through healthy boundaries, a deeper question begins to emerge. What is all of this for? Because sensitivity alone is not a mission, compassion alone is not a purpose. Even emotional intelligence, valuable as it is, does not fully explain why some people seem naturally drawn toward understanding the inner lives of others. There is something more at work. The final stage of the empath's journey is not simply about self-protection or self-awareness. It is about contribution. It is about recognizing that the greatest impact you will ever have may not come from what you do for people, but from who you become in their presence. This is where many empaths underestimate themselves. They often assume that changing lives requires extraordinary actions. They imagine that influence belongs to leaders, public figures, teachers, or people with a large platform. Yet, some of the most transformative experiences in human life occur in ordinary moments, a conversation that arrives at exactly the right time, a person who truly listens when everyone else is offering advice, a presence that makes another human being feel safe enough to tell the truth. These moments rarely make headlines, but they change lives. And empaths are uniquely positioned to create them. Not because they possess special powers, but because they understand something many people spend their entire lives searching for, the need to be seen. Beneath our ambitions, achievements, and identities, there is a universal human desire to feel understood. We want to know that our experiences matter, that our struggles make sense, and that we do not have to navigate life completely alone. When an empath has done their own inner work, they become capable of offering this gift in a profound way. Notice the distinction here. Earlier in life, they may have tried to help others by fixing problems. They may have believed their value came from providing answers. But maturity teaches a different lesson. People are rarely transformed because someone solved their problems for them. They are transformed because someone helped them see themselves differently. That is a far more powerful form of influence. Psychologically, human beings change when awareness expands. Transformation occurs when we become conscious of patterns that were previously invisible. The empath's strength often lies in their ability to gently illuminate those patterns. They notice contradictions. They sense unspoken fears. They recognize hidden strengths that others have forgotten within themselves. But they do not force change. They create conditions in which change becomes possible. This is why authenticity becomes so important. The most influential people are rarely those who appear perfect. They are those who are real. They embody a level of honesty that gives others permission to lower their own defenses. When someone encounters a person who is comfortable with vulnerability, complexity, and emotional truth, it becomes easier for them to embrace those qualities within themselves. In this sense, the empath's mission is not to lead people toward dependence. It is to lead them toward greater self-awareness. Philosophically, this reflects a timeless principle. Human beings learn as much through example as they do through instruction. We teach through our presence long before we teach through our words. The way we respond to conflict, uncertainty, disappointment, and growth quietly influences everyone around us. An empath who has transformed their own pain into wisdom and established healthy boundaries becomes a living demonstration of what emotional maturity looks like. They show others that sensitivity is not weakness. They show others that compassion can coexist with strength. They show others that healing is possible without perfection. And perhaps this is why their mission matters. Not because they are meant to save the world, but because they are meant to participate in its awakening. Every time they choose authenticity over performance, they create space for honesty. Every time they respond with understanding rather than judgment, they create space for growth. Every time they embody emotional courage, they remind others that they can do the same. The ripple effects of these choices are impossible to measure. A single conversation can alter a person's direction. A single act of genuine presence can restore hope. A single example of emotional integrity can inspire change that extends far beyond what anyone can see. This is the deeper purpose many empaths spend years searching for. Not to rescue, not to fix, not to carry, but to awaken, because when people encounter someone who has learned to live with an open heart, a clear mind, and a strong sense of self, they are reminded of what is possible within themselves.